But first, I want to talk about Donald Trump and a very important number that I think will explain to you an awful lot about what is going on in the U.S. right now. And even more about the headlines that you're seeing suggesting that America is now ruled with an iron fist by a guy who is some sort of weird mashup of Adolf Hitler, Augusto Pinochet, and the hero of an Ayn Rand novel. You want to know what it is? 80-20. That's right, 80-20. This number is basically shorthand for Trump's uncanny ability to pick and define issues in such a way that he's on the side of more or less 80% of the people, leaving the other 20% screaming and crying and carrying on, with those 20% being very heavily overrepresented in places like progressive think tanks, NPR newsrooms, universities, and the New York Times. Now, what are these issues? Well, they're issues like girls shouldn't have to share a change room with guys or compete against them in sport. 80% of the country, and these figures are shorthand, but you get my drift, think this is perfectly reasonable. But the other 20% go crazy over it. Another issue. Little kids shouldn't be exposed to adult sexual concepts in classrooms by their teachers through highly sexualized children's books. Again, 80-20. But one of the biggest 80-20 issues has been around immigration. Now, most people, normal Americans, tend to think that, hey, it's not a great idea to let people come into the country illegally, particularly not, members of a Latin American narco gang like MS-13. Yet, over the past few weeks, we have seen the left take up the cause of a man they like to describe simply as a Maryland father. His name? Kilmar Garcia, who they say was mistakenly or wrongly deported to El Salvador by the Trump administration, but who the Trump administration says was a gang member. Now, what is wild about this case is that, in keeping with the 80-20 rule, the left has decided to take up the most extreme possible case as the hill it wants to die on. Because as more and more comes out about Garcia, well, the less sympathetic this Maryland father seems. Garcia, an illegal alien, let's not forget, was stopped, it turns out, in 2022 during the Biden administration in Tennessee, where he was driving a vehicle connected to a known people smuggler, with 8 passengers and no luggage, on a trip from Texas to Maryland. Nothing suspicious there, but under the rules of the day, he was mysteriously released. Justice Department documents have also connected Garcia to MS-13 members caught hanging out in a Home Depot parking lot. And his wife had previously filed for a protective order alleging spousal abuse by Garcia. Though she is still with him, and in photos she has posted supporting him, has weirdly covered up his knuckles with love heart emojis. Those same knuckles that the White House says carry gang tattoos, which they have helpfully decoded here. You can see how deep into the weeds the 20 side of the 80-20 equation is getting here, can't you? So deep that this week, Democrat Maryland Senator Chris Van Holland flew to El Salvador to meet the accused wife-beater, accused people smuggler, and accused MS-13 member who Trump deported back to his country of citizenship. And guess who paid for his trip?
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
That's right, the U.S. taxpayer. Now, what's funny about this is that Van Hollen voted against the Lake and Riley Act, calling for the arrest of criminal illegal aliens. Yet in 2017, during the first Trump administration, he tweeted that the Trump administration should concentrate its deportation efforts on, wait for it, MS-13 members. He's not the only one on the left getting into trouble here, doubling down on poor innocent Garcia. The entire Democrat establishment is now lining up on, you guessed it, the 20 side of this 80-20 equation. Here's DNC Vice Chair David Hogg.
This was not an MS-13 gang member, and you damn well know that.
Oh, come on.
He was not.
Okay,
and
so keep defending this guy.
The administration admitted this was wrong. In America, we have due process, and we are a land of law and order. We are a land of law and order. And this administration is repeatedly showing time and time again they do not care about what the Supreme Court says. They do not care about the rule of law. And you cannot defend sending people to another country.
Just did a poll that
to another country where they don't have
Americans
rights,
think that all illegal immigrants should be deported, by the way. So you're losing your effort. So if you want to try to defend the constitutionality of deporting a illegal immigrant that's here,
he took a lot of time to come after me.
He's here illegally. The Intel community, every Intel community agency and the White House say he is a member of MS-13.
80-20. And you can see here when he is confronted by reporters that Van Hollen himself thinks that maybe he has also gotten onto the wrong side of the argument.
Were you aware of Kilmar's domestic violence on his record and human trafficking concerns?
As I said, everything should be presented to the federal district court.
But it doesn't seem like the left is going to change their tune. Meet Nashia Blair, who has been deported by the Trump administration to what the New York Times calls a home he barely knows, Jamaica. In a sympathetic puff piece, the Times writes, he landed in Jamaica in February, 21 years after he had abandoned the island, seated next to dozens of his countrymen who were also handcuffed. As he stepped off the plane at the seaside airport in Kingston and felt the scorching Caribbean sun of his youth, Mr. Blair was greeted with suspicion. Suspicion? I wonder why. Well, you have to go deeper to learn that Blair was also a drug dealer who wound up doing 15 years in prison on a kidnapping charge related to his illegal activity. 80-20. So you might ask, what's the upside for the left, to the Democrats for taking the 20% side of this argument? The losing side, the side of illegal alien criminals who no one in their right mind wants in the country. Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, the Kilmar Garcia case and the Blair case and many more like it are being litigated all across the country and in the press. And using arguments for due process denied to the victims of any of these criminals, Democrats and leftist activists are essentially saying that people who were shipped into the country with no legal authority should have all the legal rights of citizens to remain in the country. Joe Biden, they're saying, may have brought in 10 million people without any due process, they say, but if you want to kick any of them out, well, that'll have to go before a judge and maybe to the Supreme Court. The left's endgame here is obvious. It's to create a legal precedent that slowly erases the difference between citizen and non-citizen for entry, residency, working, and eventually voting. And if they are successful, this means they'll get to overwhelm that 80 by growing the 20 side of the argument with an entire new class of immigrants. Because, hey, those MS-13 gang members sure will make good citizens, I'm sure. Right, amigo?